In the quiet darkness of space, the Galactic Empire had reigned for centuries. From their shining, enormous ships to their powerful technology, they controlled vast sections of the galaxy. For as long as anyone could remember, they had conquered, crushed, and silenced any race that stood against them. Earth was no exception. They had only heard of Earth in whispers, just a tiny blue planet that had no real power in the grand scheme of things. But that was about to change. It began with a message. The humans of Earth, once thought to be weak and unworthy of attention, sent a communication to the Galactic Empire. It was short, direct, and full of a quiet confidence that the Empire could not ignore. The message simply read, "Run or face the consequences." On the other end, in the command halls of the Galactic Empire, the message was met with laughter. The idea that humans, a species who had only just begun exploring space in the last few hundred years, could pose a real threat was ridiculous. The Empire had armies of well-trained soldiers, warships with unimaginable firepower, and fleets that stretched across the stars. No one dared to challenge them. And yet, here were the humans, making an empty threat. A high-ranking officer in the Imperial fleet, Admiral Kalen, read the message again, his face filled with amusement. "Do they not understand who we are?" he asked, turning to his fellow officers. "We are the Galactic Empire. We have crushed entire civilizations, and these humans think they can stop us with one simple message." His colleagues chuckled, shaking their heads. "It's laughable," said one of them. "It must be a mistake." But Admiral Kalen was not so sure. Something about the message unsettled him, though he couldn't put his finger on it. His instincts told him not to ignore it. He had faced enemies before, those who underestimated the Empire only to be crushed under its might. But there was something different about this warning. It wasn't just a threat. It was a challenge. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place. The leaders of the Empire's many planets and systems were confident in their superiority, but some of the younger officers, like Kalen, began to question whether they had overlooked something. Despite the laughter, the growing curiosity about Earth became undeniable. In response to the message, the Galactic Empire sent a diplomatic envoy to Earth. The Empire believed that sending a group of ambassadors would be enough to silence any ideas of rebellion. Surely, the humans would see their mistake and bow before their might. The ambassadors would explain that such threats would not be tolerated. But when they arrived, they found a different Earth than what they had expected. Earth's government had long been quiet about their capabilities. For years, the humans had developed secret technology, kept hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Their scientists and engineers had worked tirelessly, creating machines and weapons that could rival the most advanced civilizations. But Earth had remained peaceful, never revealing its hand. That was until now. The Earth ambassadors greeted the Imperial diplomats with calm smiles, but the message was the same. "We warned you. We are prepared." The humans had not only prepared their military, but had been studying the Empire for years. They knew the weaknesses of every Imperial ship, every defense system, and every fleet strategy. And the message wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. The Empire did not take the warning seriously. They believed the humans had no real power, no real chance of victory. But Admiral Kalen, still uneasy from his earlier instincts, had a different view. He began to question the Empire's arrogance. He could sense something shifting in the air, a tension he couldn't explain. Earth had prepared for this moment, and it was becoming clear that they had something more than just words. Weeks passed, and the Empire moved to ignore the human threat, sending their most powerful fleets to crush any remaining whispers of rebellion in the galaxy. They would not be distracted by a small planet, but still, Admiral Kalen couldn't shake the feeling that the Empire had made a grave mistake. As the first Imperial fleet moved towards Earth's orbit, the humans were already waiting. Their ships, sleek and unfamiliar to the Empire, hovered in space like shadows, silent and patient. They were not afraid. The humans had warned the Empire, but now they were ready. And this time, the galaxy would see the true power of Earth. Admiral Callan stood at the command console of his ship, watching the movement of human vessels on his screen. He knew something was coming, but the Empire would soon discover what they had overlooked. The humans had a strength they had never imagined. And now, the Galactic Empire would face them, not as conquerors, but as equals in a war they had no way of winning. For the first time, the Empire was about to learn the cost of underestimating humanity. The day had come. The Galactic Empire, confident and powerful, sent its first fleet towards Earth's orbit. With thousands of ships armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, they were certain they would crush any resistance. The Empire had destroyed countless civilizations, and they saw no reason why this small, seemingly insignificant planet should be any different. But the humans had been waiting. As the Empire's fleet approached, they were met with a scene that left even the most experienced commanders questioning their senses. There were no grand speeches from Earth. No fleets waiting to engage in a drawn-out battle. Just a sudden, sharp strike that shattered everything they knew about warfare. The first attack came without warning. The Empire's fleet had just entered Earth's atmosphere when a series of flashes lit up the sky. Ships from Earth's fleet emerged from the shadows, moving faster than any Imperial warship had ever seen. These ships weren't like the massive Imperial destroyers with their thick armor and devastating firepower. Earth's ships were sleek, smaller, and built for speed. The first strike was a direct hit. A single human ship fired a powerful beam that cut through the Imperial fleet's outer defenses like a hot knife through butter. The beam hit an Imperial destroyer head-on, causing it to explode in a blinding flash of light. The Empire had no time to react. The ship was gone, and in its place was nothing but debris scattered across the void. Admiral Callan watched in disbelief. He had expected resistance, but not this. The humans had hit them before they could even prepare. Their tactics were nothing like the Empire's calculated, strategic methods. The humans didn't fight by the book. They fought by instinct, with the flexibility of a species that had learned to adapt quickly to their surroundings. "We've been caught off guard," Callan muttered to himself. This wasn't supposed to happen. As Earth's fleet scattered and moved with remarkable agility, the Empire struggled to regain control. Their ships, though larger and more heavily armed, lacked the speed and flexibility of the human ships. Every time they tried to fire back, the humans were already out of their range, darting in and out of Imperial defenses with uncanny precision. Humanity's ships seemed to appear and vanish like ghosts in the darkness of space. Each strike was quick, calculated, and brutal. Another Imperial destroyer was hit, this time with a series of smaller explosions that disabled its engines and left it drifting helplessly. Another ship followed, then another, as Earth's fleet showed no mercy. The Empire's arrogance had blinded them to the true strength of humanity. They had thought of Earth as a primitive planet, its technology no match for their advanced weapons. But now, the humans were proving that their strength lay not in brute force, but in their ability to adapt and overcome. "Send reinforcements," Callan ordered urgently. "We cannot let them take the lead. They'll destroy us if we don't act fast." But it was too late. The human fleet had already gained the upper hand, and the battle was no longer about fighting with strength alone. It was about survival. Earth's ships were equipped with technology that the Empire had never seen before. They had energy shields capable of absorbing blast after blast without weakening. Their weapons were precise, designed not just to cause destruction, but to disable enemy ships and render them useless. And then there was the element of surprise. The humans didn't play by the Empire's rules. They didn't fight in predictable patterns. They kept changing their tactics, keeping the Empire's forces on their toes. As the battle raged on, Callan watched helplessly as one of his flagship's engines took a direct hit. The ship shuddered and groaned as its hull cracked under the force of the explosion. Panic spread across the bridge. The once confident Empire now faced an enemy they couldn't understand. On the other side, the humans were united in their fight. Their commanders, veterans of Earth's wars, had long ago learned to fight with precision and resilience. And now their training and preparation were paying off. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy, for their right to be heard. "We've got them on the run," one of the human commanders said as they fired another round of shots into an Imperial cruiser. "They're not as invincible as they think." Kalen's fleet was being torn apart, one ship at a time. His crew, once so confident, was now scrambling to defend themselves. The battle had gone from a show of Empire superiority to a desperate attempt to escape with their lives intact. The humans, once thought to be beneath them, had become a real threat. "Admiral, we need to retreat," a voice broke through Kalen's panic. It was his first officer, looking grim. "No," Kalen replied sharply. "We cannot show weakness. We must finish this." But deep down, Kalen knew the truth. They had underestimated the humans. And now, it was too late. The Empire's mighty fleet was being dismantled by the unexpected and relentless attacks of Earth's forces. Every ship that fell was a reminder that the Empire's power wasn't as invincible as they had once believed. As the battle wore on, Kalen finally gave the order. "Retreat. We've lost too many ships. Get out of here. Now." But it was already too late. The humans had made their point. They had shown the Empire that Earth would no longer be pushed around. And for the first time, the Empire was beginning to realize that they had underestimated the power of humanity. The battle had been a disaster for the Galactic Empire. What was supposed to be a quick strike to teach the humans, a lesson had turned into a humiliating defeat. Ships that had once been the pride of the Empire were now drifting in space, disabled or destroyed, their crews lost or captured. The Empire's once formidable fleet was in disarray, and Admiral Kalen had barely managed to escape with his life. As his flagship limped away from Earth's orbit, the silence on the bridge was heavy. Kalen stood at the front, his gaze fixed on the view outside. The stars seemed distant and cold, as though mocking his failure. "We've been beaten by humans," he muttered to himself, unable to believe it. His first officer, a seasoned soldier named Velen, approached him cautiously. "Admiral, we've lost half our fleet. We need to regroup and report to the High Command. The Empire will not take this lightly." Kalen clenched his fists, his mind racing. How had this happened? The Empire had faced rebellions before, but this was different. The humans hadn't just fought back. They had struck with a ferocity and intelligence that the Empire had never expected. "We'll report," Kalen said finally, his voice cold. "But we're not just going to tell them what happened. We need to find out everything about these humans. They were ready for us. We underestimated them, and I won't make that mistake again." Valen nodded. "I agree. The human fleet was unlike anything we've ever seen. Their ships were fast, efficient, and incredibly difficult to destroy. Their tactics were unpredictable. We need to understand how they were able to prepare so quickly." Kalen stared out into space. His mind raced, recalling every detail of the battle. The human ships had moved with a precision and speed that no one could have anticipated. They had known exactly how to disable the Empire's ships, avoiding the heavy artillery and attacking only the weak points. It was almost as if they had known the Empire's fleet inside and out. "We need to gather intelligence," Kalen said, his voice firm. "Send every scout ship we have to Earth. They've shown us their strength, but we need to know their weaknesses." As the fleet retreated back toward the Empire's central systems, Kalen's thoughts kept returning to Earth. What kind of people were these humans? How had they developed such advanced technology in such a short time? The Empire's intelligence networks had underestimated Earth, and now, it seemed, they were paying the price. Back on Earth, the humans were already celebrating their victory. It wasn't just about surviving the battle. It was about proving that they were capable of defending their home. The message was clear. Earth was not to be underestimated. The human leaders met in a secure facility, far from the prying eyes of the Empire. They had been preparing for this moment for years, and now their hard work had paid off. But they knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would not give up so easily. "We've sent a clear message," Commander Ellen Williams said, standing at the head of the table. "But the Empire will be back. We need to prepare for the next wave." General Marcus Ford, a decorated military strategist, nodded. "We've won the first battle. But the war is far from over. The Empire will come back with everything they have. We need to keep pushing forward, or we'll never truly be safe." Williams agreed. "We've given them a taste of what we're capable of. But now, we need to make sure they know it wasn't a fluke. We need to continue building our forces, refining our strategies, and strengthening our defenses. This victory isn't the end. It's just the beginning." The humans had proven they could stand up to the Empire, but they knew that they couldn't rely on just one victory. They had to keep evolving, keep learning, and keep fighting. They had to be ready for the Empire's inevitable return. Meanwhile, on the Imperial flagship, Admiral Callan's mood was far from optimistic. His fleet was severely damaged, and the retreat had been a painful reminder of how far the Empire had fallen from its once untouchable status. He had to report this failure to the Empire's high command, but he knew the consequences would be severe. The Empire's leaders would demand answers, and they would not be satisfied with excuses. As he prepared for the upcoming meeting, Callan couldn't help but feel a strange sense of respect for the humans. They had fought with everything they had, and they had won. But he also knew that this was far from over. The Empire's hunger for dominance was unmatched, and they would return with a vengeance. He had seen how Earth fought. Now he would learn how to defeat them. And the next time the Empire came to Earth, it would not be to teach the humans a lesson. It would be to finish what they had started. The war between the Empire and Earth had just begun, and both sides knew that the stakes could not be higher. The humans had won the first battle, but the galaxy's fate was still uncertain. The Empire would not let this defeat go unanswered, and humanity would not back down without a fight. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: this was only the beginning. After the shocking defeat of the Galactic Empire's fleet, Earth found itself in an unexpected position. The rest of the galaxy was watching. The Empire, once seen as the supreme force in the universe, had been humbled by a planet thought to be little more than a primitive backwater. Now, many other species began to wonder, if Earth could stand up to the Empire, could they too? Commander Ellen Williams knew that humanity's victory had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, but she also knew that the Empire would not stay down for long. The High Command had already begun making plans for the next assault, and the humans had to be ready. They couldn't defend Earth alone. They needed allies. "We've proven our strength," she said, standing in front of a large digital map in the command center. "But we can't take on the Empire alone. We need to form an alliance, one that will give us the power to stand up to the Empire for good." General Marcus Ford, always the pragmatist, frowned as he looked at the map. "The Empire may be licking its wounds right now, but they'll rebuild quickly. We need to act fast. But who can we trust? Most of the galaxy is still too afraid to challenge them." Ellen nodded, understanding the concern. The Galactic Empire had ruled for so long that many species had grown dependent on their protection, or too fearful to resist. But now that the humans had shown they could win, it was time to change that. "We'll start by reaching out to the species that have already resisted the Empire's influence," Ellen said, her voice steady. "We need to find those who have already suffered under the Empire's rule. They'll understand what's at stake." The first race they contacted was the Corlans, a once proud species known for their skill in space warfare. But after a brutal conquest by the Empire, they had been forced into submission. Their ships were now little more than scrap, and their people lived under the Empire's thumb. But Ellen believed the Corlans could be persuaded to fight again. The Corlans were wary, but when Ellen and her team presented their evidence of the Empire's weaknesses, how Earth had not only survived their attack, but struck back with strength and cunning, They began to listen. The Corlins had seen what had happened to the humans, and something inside them sparked. "We were once like you," said Corlin leader Carr, his eyes burning with the fire of old memories. "We were proud. We were free. But now, we are broken. We've been waiting for someone to stand up to the Empire." "We are standing," Ellen replied. "And we need you. Together, we can make sure the Empire knows they can't control everyone." The Corlins agreed to join the growing alliance, but they were not alone. Soon, other species began to make contact. The Lyrans, a race of telepathic beings who had been oppressed by the Empire for centuries, sent a message of solidarity. The Vex, a nomadic species who had seen their worlds ravaged by the Empire, offered to supply resources and ship technology. Even the Taldrians, a peaceful race with advanced medical knowledge, pledged their support, offering to assist with the care of soldiers and civilians alike. Ellen couldn't believe it. Species from all over the galaxy were coming together to fight the Empire. The alliance was growing stronger by the day. But not everyone was on board. There were still factions that feared the Empire's wrath, and some species refused to join the fight, preferring to stay out of the conflict entirely. They argued that the Empire would eventually crush any rebellion, and they didn't want to risk their own survival by picking a side. "This is a fight for our freedom," Ellen said in a meeting with her advisors. "We cannot sit by while the Empire continues to oppress others. We've seen what happens when we do nothing. We have to make them see that we won't be silenced." General Ford, who had once been skeptical of the idea of an alliance, now stood fully behind it. "If we don't act now, we may never get another chance. We've already shown the Empire that we're not afraid. Now we need to show the rest of the galaxy that we're a force to be reckoned with." As the weeks passed, the alliance grew. Ships and resources from the Corlins, Lyrans, Vex, and Taldrians poured into Earth's military base. A new training program was developed, combining the best tactics of each species to form a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Earth's military quickly adapted to the new technologies and strategies brought by their allies, and soon they were ready to face the Empire once again. But despite the growing strength of the alliance, Ellen knew that the real challenge lay ahead. The Empire would not surrender easily. They would return, stronger than ever, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim their dominance. "We've taken the first step," Ellen said to her team, her voice resolute. "But now we prepare for what's next. The Empire won't let us go without a fight. And when they come, we'll be ready." As Earth's fleet prepared for the next wave, the Alliance stood strong. Species that had once been divided, each suffering under the Empire's rule, were now united in a common cause. The galaxy had watched as Earth rose to face the might of the Empire. And now they were watching again as humanity led the charge for freedom. The war was far from over, but for the first time, the Empire's grip on the galaxy seemed to be slipping. And in that small, quiet moment, Ellen realized something. The galaxy was no longer afraid. And together, they would show the Empire what true resistance looked like. The Alliance was now stronger than ever. Earth's military, supported by the Corlins, Lyrans, Vex, and Taldrians, had grown into a formidable force. Ships from all species worked together, combining their strengths to create a fleet that could rival the galactic empires. But despite their growing power, they all knew that the hardest part was still to come. The Empire was not a force that would easily give up its hold on the galaxy. Admiral Callan of the Galactic Empire had returned to the heart of the Empire's command center. His face was a mask of fury and determination as he stood before the High Command, reporting on the disastrous attack on Earth. The Empire had lost face. They had underestimated the humans and their allies. Now, Callan was tasked with reclaiming the Empire's honor and its control over the galaxy. "They have formed an alliance," Callan reported coldly. "The humans and several species who have suffered under our rule. They are stronger now united. We cannot afford to ignore them any longer." The High Command, A group of the Empire's most powerful leaders exchanged tense glances. For the first time, they were faced with a challenge they could not easily dismiss. The humans had proven they were not as weak as they had thought. "What is their strategy?" one of the commanders asked, his voice filled with concern. "They are preparing for our return," Kalen replied. "They are using everything we know about warfare, combined with the tactics of their new allies. Their ships have been enhanced with the technology we've never seen before. They're ready for us." A deep silence filled the room. The High Command knew what this meant. The Empire had lost many ships in the first battle, and the humans were quickly becoming a real threat. It wasn't just about pride anymore. If the Empire didn't act soon, it could lose everything. "We will strike before they are ready," the leader of the High Command, Malthor, said firmly. "We will crush them before their alliance can grow any stronger." Kalen nodded, feeling the weight of his mission. "The Empire will strike with full force. I will ensure Earth is put back in its place." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Commander Ellen Williams stood at the center of a strategy meeting with the leaders of the new alliance. The mood was tense but determined. They had proven they could win once, but now they had to prepare for the Empire's retaliation. "The Empire will not forgive us for what happened," Ellen said, her voice calm but filled with purpose. "They will come back, and they will be angrier than ever. We need to be ready for their next strike." General Marcus Ford, ever the strategist, nodded. "We've made great progress, but the Empire will not hesitate to use everything they have. We've seen their power, but they have resources we don't. We need to anticipate their moves." Ellen turned to the representatives of the Corlins and the Lyrans, seeking their input. "We need to know what they'll do next. We need to stay ahead of them." Carr, the Corlin leader, stepped forward. "The Empire will strike with everything they have. They have a fleet large enough to overwhelm us. But they have one weakness, their arrogance. They underestimate their enemies, and that is something we can use against them." The Lyran representative, Talia, added, "The Empire's fleets are well organized, but they don't think outside the box. We can surprise them, attack where they least expect it." Ellen smiled slightly, encouraged by the insight. "We've done that once. We can do it again." But even as they talked, each leader knew that the time was quickly running out. The Empire's forces were already preparing, and their next attack would be unlike anything the Alliance had faced so far. Earth had to be ready, not just to defend, but to strike back. The Alliance worked tirelessly, preparing for the inevitable assault. The humans, with the help of their allies, improved their fleet's capabilities. The Corlins provided enhanced weapons technology. The Lyrans shared their knowledge of telepathic warfare. And the Taldrians worked to build better medical support systems. Every species contributed what they could, and Earth's forces adapted quickly to the new technologies. As the days passed, the pressure grew. Earth's defenses were stronger, but they were still vastly outnumbered by the Empire's forces. They needed an advantage, something that could tip the scales in their favor. In the quiet of her command room, Ellen received a message that made her heart race. The Empire was on the move, preparing for a full-scale attack on Earth. They were coming. "We've prepared as best as we can," Ellen said to her team, her voice steady despite the urgency in the air. "Now, we wait. But remember, we've proven that we can win. And this time, we will fight with everything we have." General Ford added, "We've got one chance to turn the tide. If we fall now, everything we've built will crumble. But we won't fall. We'll rise." The Alliance stood together, united against a common enemy. They had fought once and won, but now they were facing an even bigger challenge. Earth's fate, and the fate of the galaxy, hung in the balance. The Empire was coming to reclaim its power, but humanity and its allies were ready to show them that the galaxy no longer belonged to the Empire. The war had only just begun, and Earth would fight with everything it had. The question now wasn't whether the Empire would attack, it was whether Earth could withstand the storm. The time for waiting was over. The Empire's fleet was on the move, and it was heading straight for Earth. The Alliance, though vastly outnumbered, was determined to defend the planet and prove that the Empire could no longer rule the galaxy unchecked. Earth's defenses had been strengthened. The fleet was ready, and every species within the Alliance knew what was at stake. Commander Ellen Williams stood before a massive digital display, tracking the movements of the Empire's fleet as it approached. She felt a deep sense of responsibility. It was not just Earth's survival on the line anymore. It was the future of the entire galaxy. If the Empire succeeded, it would only be a matter of time before other worlds fell under their oppressive control. "We have one shot at this," Ellen said, addressing the leaders of the Alliance who were gathered around the table. "The Empire will not stop until they've wiped us out. We need to make them pay for what they've done." General Marcus Ford nodded in agreement. "The Empire's fleet is massive, but we have an advantage. We know they will underestimate us. They think they can just steamroll us again. Let's use that to our advantage." The victory was not just a triumph for Earth. It was a victory for every species that had suffered under the Empire's rule. For the first time, the galaxy saw that the Empire could be defeated. The tide had turned. And as Ellen stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, watching the remains of the battle unfold in space, she knew that this was only the beginning. The Empire would return. But next time, they would face a united galaxy, and humanity would lead the charge. The war had reached its final stage. The galaxy was on edge, waiting to see how the battle between the humans and a galactic empire would end. The Empire, though shattered in its last encounter, was not the kind to give up easily. They had retreated, regrouped, and now they were preparing for their last, desperate attempt to crush Earth and the Alliance. Commander Ellen Williams stood at the front of the command center, staring at the massive display before her. Her heart raced, but she knew the fight was far from over. The last few weeks had been filled with intense strategy and training. The Alliance had come together, stronger than ever, but the Empire was still a force to be reckoned with. "They'll be here soon," Ellen said quietly to her crew. "But this time, we finish it." General Marcus Ford stood beside her, his face grim but determined. "They won't stop until they think they've destroyed us. We have to give them everything we've got, no matter the cost." "We will," Ellen said, "but we need to make sure we're not fighting alone this time. We can't afford to make the same mistakes again." The Alliance had learned from its past battles. They had forged stronger bonds between their fleets, ensuring that no one would be left behind this time. The humans, Corlin, Liren, Vec, and Taldrian forces all knew what was at stake. This battle was not just for Earth. It was for the freedom of every world the Empire had ever threatened. "We're ready," Char, the Corlin leader, said, his voice calm but with an unmistakable fierceness. "We've been preparing for this moment. We won't fail you." The Alliance ships, now well coordinated and battle-hardened, took their positions. Earth's shipyards had been working around the clock to reinforce their fleet, and new weapons had been designed to give them a fighting chance against the Empire's formidable arsenal. Every ship, from the smallest to the largest, was ready for the final confrontation. "Report from the scouts," said Talia, the Liran representative. "The Empire's fleet is approaching. They're larger than we expected, but we have the advantage of surprise." "Good," Ellen replied. "Let's hit them before they can establish their positions. We won't give them time to regroup. All ships, prepare to jump into position." With that, the battle began. The Empire's fleet came into view, their ships massive and imposing, lining up for what seemed like an unstoppable wave of destruction. The Alliance had no time to waste. They had to strike first, hitting the Empire while they were still organizing their forces. The first salvo came from the humans. Earth's ships fired their energy cannons, breaking through the Empire's outer defenses with impressive precision. But the Empire quickly retaliated, firing back with their own powerful weapons. The sound of explosions filled space, and the stars above became a chaotic battlefield. "We're going to need more firepower," General Ford said, his voice tight with determination. "We need to disable their flagship." "Agreed," Ellen said. "All ships target the Empire's flagship. We hit them where it hurts." The Alliance forces moved as one. The Corlin ships danced around the Empire's defenses, evading fire and launching devastating strikes at weak points in the enemy's formation. Meanwhile, the Lyrans, with their telepathic abilities, guided the fleet with calm precision, giving them a tactical advantage. The Taldrians, with their superior stealth technology, snuck through the Empire's ranks, planting disruptive charges on key ships. The battle was intense, but the tide was turning. The Empire's fleet, despite its overwhelming numbers, couldn't match the ingenuity and speed of the Alliance's forces. The humans were proving their worth as leaders in the fight against tyranny. Their ships coordinated perfectly with the rest of the fleet, each move calculated, each shot fired with precision. Ellen watched the chaos unfold on the screen before her. The Imperator, the Empire's flagship, was looming large in the distance. It was a symbol of their power, their arrogance, and it was about to fall. "Prepare for the final strike," Ellen ordered. "This is our moment. We end this now." The Alliance ships regrouped, focusing all their firepower on the Imperator. The massive ship, once thought invincible, began to show signs of weakness. The Empire's shields were weakening, their weapons faltering. Ellen could feel the hope rising in her chest. This was it, the end of the Empire's reign. With one final, coordinated assault, the Alliance's ships fired everything they had at the Imperator. A brilliant explosion lit up the galaxy, and the flagship was torn apart. The Empire's once proud vessel crumbled into pieces, leaving nothing but debris in its wake. The Empire's remaining ships, now leaderless and in chaos, began to retreat. The battle was over. The Alliance had won. Earth had survived. And for the first time, the galaxy could breathe freely. Ellen felt a sense of relief wash over her, but she knew it wasn't over yet. The galaxy had been forever changed. The Empire would never be the same, and the Alliance was now a force to be reckoned with. There would be challenges ahead, but humanity and its allies had shown that they were no longer a people to be underestimated. As she stood in front of her crew, Ellen spoke the words they had all been waiting for. "We've won, but the fight for peace is just beginning." And so, the galaxy moved into a new era, one where the Galactic Empire no longer held sway. Humanity had led the way, and the future was theirs to shape.